ndio nani 107.
107.3. Kericho is 107.3.
Kericho. Each nani mahali iko na
Yes.
yake.
Yeah, you are good to go. Yeah.
We sit.
Yes. Yeah. You sit here. Yeah. Yeah.
Is it okay here?
Yes, it's okay.
This can you hear when I'm
Yes, you can use headphone.
You get headphones on?
Now we can start.
Yes.
So the distance doesn't matter. The distance doesn't matter, eh? Yeah, these are the answers.
Yes, msikilizaji, nilikuarifu tayari wageni wamefika studioni. Namuona sister and the team tayari wamefika msikilizaji, tayari kutuelimisha tu, na mada ya leo watakuwa nazungumzia life in Christ. So stay tuned. Naona tayari wamefika, sister and the team.
Yes.
How are you doing?
We are doing well, thank you. Good afternoon.
Yes.
And good afternoon to our listeners.
Yeah.
Welcome to our program Youth Zone.
Yes.
We are live on Facebook. Give us the link, please. The link.
Radio Maria Kenya Dash Nairobi. Our Facebook page is Radio Maria Kenya Dash
Nairobi, and then we are also live on YouTube, Youth Zone with Sister Aurelia. You are most welcome. With us, we have our guests, very important guests, Mr. Nyaga Anastasio and Father Edward. Father Edward is the youth chaplain of Ngong Diocese. Mr. Nyaga is the lecturer at Tangaza University. I feel honored to have you in the studio, and we are glad to learn from you. So our today's topic is youth, a life in Christ, and precisely we want to look at how we can present Christ to the young people. Most welcome to our guests. I'm going to invite them to introduce themselves to us and tell us who they are, and greet us before we start. Karibuni. We start with Father Edward.
Yes, how are you listeners?
We are good.
My name is Father Edward Mashua from the Catholic Diocese of Ngong as a diocesan youth chaplain. Pleasure being here.
Thank you very much, Father. Mr. Nyaga.
Good afternoon, listeners. My name is Anastasio Nyaga. I'm from Tangaza University, Orange. A lecturer there, teaching in the School of Theology and in the Institute of Youth Studies. and I'm glad to be invited here in Radio Maria for the first time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and you are most welcome. We are glad
Thank
to
you.
have you here.
Thank you
And
so much.
we are going straight to the point, straight to our program, because we come a little bit late. You know, with the traffic in Nairobi, we cannot estimate certain things. So, Mr. Nyaga, I'm going to begin with you.
Yes, please.
I understand that you work very well with young people, the youth, and I'm just curious to know what inspired you to work with youth and share the message of Christ with them.
Yes, thank you so much for this question. In fact, I'm no longer a youth, but I have been working with young people for the past 20 years or so. And my passion was actually triggered by the very life of the young people themselves, who are the most promising and having a lot of potentials, the times that they lived. So the question of generation is very important because, for example, now we are living in the times of information technology. We have young people who are digital natives. They are born in the era of digitalization, and so for them, virtual world is a reality. If I compare with the youth of maybe 20 years ago, that could be a different story. They were not born with phones. Actually, in fact, life was so casual. So, life was also very simple. Now life has become so sophisticated because now the generation we have they are calling smart generation. Actually, Gen Zs is a generation born around 1996 to 2012, like that. Of course, after Gen Zs, we have alphas. So even Gen Zs are not so much. I can say they are not so much in touch with the digital issues like alphas are. Even themselves, they have to learn because they were not born with the phones at hands. But alphas are born with the phones at hands and all these technological devices. So the question of generation is very important because we have young people who are living with old generation. Sorry to say old generation, because when you are told you are old, you feel bad. But all of us shall become old one day. But we need to understand that we work with people who are ahead of us. Sometimes some issues, what they see is not what we saw. We cannot compare them with how we were raised up and so forth. And therefore, it's good to wear the shoes of the generations, especially the current one. I myself, I may not be a Gen Z, but I have to accompany the Gen Z. So I have to go beyond my own generation. I cannot tell them to behave the way I behaved. I can't tell them even to think the way I thought. So it's a kind of paradigm shift from one generation to another. And in fact, every 10 years, there is a change of generation. Yeah. So we need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
Every 10 years, the generation is different. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nyaga, for enlightening us on that. And my other question goes to Father Edward. I know you must have worked as a youth minister for some good time now. The fact that you are the youth chaplain of Ngong Diocese, and I would like you to enlighten us on some of the challenges faced by the youth ministers in the current world.
Yes, working with the youth is both a privilege and also a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And the major challenge that we face is the need to stay relevant in an ever-changing world. Yeah, as society norms shift and the new issues arises, the youth minister must constantly be able to adapt to and also employ methods that will resonate with the young people. And this requires an ongoing education and a willingness to engage with the contemporary topics that matter to them.
It means in the way that they understand, in the way that they embrace. We have heard complaints, especially in our liturgies, saying that our liturgies are boring, our liturgies are boring. Sometimes they say maybe, our liturgies, you know, they want them to be the way they are. In one or the other, I think presenting Christ in the way that young people understand is a very important issue, especially in our church. Otherwise, we shall leave them out. We need to understand who is Christ for them. How would when you talk about Jesus Christ, what will make them be interested in listening to those stories? Because they are not, sometimes they may not be the stories they listen elsewhere. Maybe there are stories, maybe they say they are talked in the church. But Christ is not always talked about in the church. I think we have to have various ways in which we communicate Christ. And you know, for us Christians, for us Catholic, life in Christ is the way of our life. Through baptism, we are made anew, and we live life that is not our old life. But now, for young people, this need to be done in such a way that it brings their own characteristics. I would say that maybe presenting life in Christ, how they should live in harmony with Christian living, in the Christian way, actually, in other words, the virtuous living, need to be more youthful, in the sense that we need to make our maybe liturgies, maybe our presentations more interesting to them. Maybe we need to involve their lifestyle in a way that is not going away from the decorum of the church, decorum of the liturgy, but also they enjoy. Let them enjoy what we do with them, the activities we do with them that help them to know Christ more, that help them to know how they should live their life in line with the teachings of Christ, in the teaching of Christianity. And finally, I would say that we have a very good example in the post-experience example, Emmaus experience. Jesus accompanied these two disciples, and he listened to their stories. And I think we can learn from there that we need to have more listening here to the young people, what they are saying to us. Sometimes not verbally, sometimes through maybe their
An accompaniment of a youth minister to be able to overcome and to get the relevant answers. Otherwise, they may be pushed to succumb to the peer pressure, to fit with their peers in trying to stay true to their belief.
Okay, thank you very much, Father. And then, Mr. Nyaga, I have one question for you before we wind and a little bit give ourselves a break as we prepare for the Divine Mercy prayers. And the question is, how do you address the diverse backgrounds and experiences of youth?
Yeah, this is really a very relevant question. Youth come from various backgrounds, and in fact, if I may give an example, when you are dealing, for example, with the youth of Nairobi, it is quite different from dealing with the youth of maybe up country. Yeah, we need to understand the lifestyles also goes with the backgrounds in which youth are very much brought up. We have what to call, for example, the city culture. We may have a different culture. So in as much as we talk of globalized world, globalization is very contextual also. The very contextual in that when I'm talking with the youth of, let's say, of the city, I need to be aware that they are influenced by a number of things, because in the city we have multicultural kind of practices. we have youth coming from all places, and therefore I may not assume that the values I try to inculcate in them, they are getting it in the same way. For example, in Nairobi, if we look when they go for worship, they are not attached to one parish. Sometimes a youth may be living in South Sea and going maybe for mass in another parish which is very far from South Sea, and jumping maybe 3 parishes. Yeah, maybe there is something that attracts them there from the other side.
Mhm.
Yeah, so we need to understand that we need the being sensitive with the cultural backgrounds in which the youth live is a very important issue, and therefore I address them with the sensitivity of the places they are living. Even there are some examples that I may give to the youth who are living the city. I cannot give to the youth who are living the up country. These some examples could be scandalous to the youth of the up country, but the youth in the youth who are living in the city, some of those examples may be normal. So I need to be sensitive when I'm addressing the youth, being sensitive of their diverse cultures, backgrounds. Of course, some also, another part, just a little bit, part of the background could come from their families. You know, some are brought up in some families that are less privileged to have enough basic needs. Others are brought up maybe in middle class families and all that. And all this, the message I sent to them may not resonate the same. So I need to be so much aware that young people, as I deal with them, that they have their specific needs, not one general need that I can pass across and the message reaches home. I need to be aware that the message reaches home individually according to their diverse backgrounds and the diverse context in which they are coming from.
Wow. And Mr. Nyaga, I understand that some youth these days kind of, this is my understanding, I might be wrong, I stand to be corrected, but people, especially those that work with the youth, tend to say, oh, these people are difficult to deal with, they are difficult to handle. And from the way I'm hearing from you, you must be having a good rapport with the youth. And I'm just curious to know, how do you stay relevant and connected to the youth?
Yeah, actually, you don't need to ask for to be corrected, because that's what we hear from people.
Okay.
But there is a difference between what we hear and the reality itself. Young people many times tell me that listen to what we are not saying. There are many things they may be saying to us, but we are not listening to them. And so I will not say that youth are difficult people. I would say that youth is a stage of life that need a kind of style which need to not be generalized like the way we deal with adults and the way we deal with youth. So I think it is for us not to change our perspectives. I wanted to affirm that if we change the perspective of youth, they can be in our box where we want us them to be. When we see them as problems, therefore they present to us. When they come to us, we are seeing a problem, in front of us to be solved.
Yeah.
But I think we need to see them as having problems, and each one of us has many problems in this world, not only the youth. So why are we exaggerating their problems, and then we even term them? I've heard in Kiswahili, Sister Aurelia, someone saying, "Yao vijana shinda tu." You see, now when you say "Yao vijana shinda tu," it means that in front of you have a problem always to solve. Even in the families, you hear a parent like me telling my children, "Shida tu hapa." You are only a problem in this family. Now, where are those problems come from? It means that they are my product. I'm also a problem. Yeah. So it is also good to know that changing perspective in which we see the youth is very important, because nafikiri we are judging them a lot. Yeah, and we have no right to judge them, because everyone has got their issues. And maybe later when you come back, I will share some experiences that I've had from them. What really they expect us to see them. Because I ask them, what do you expect us as elders, as adults, to see you? Yeah, maybe I will share that when you come back.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah,
And thank you so much, our viewers, as we prepare for our break to go for the Divine Mercy prayers. I call on you. This program is not only for the youth, but as we talk now, it is also for the animators and the parents. I guess the parents need to learn the approach on how they deal with their young people. So thank you very much, our listeners, and let me hand over back to our host.
Yes, msikilizaji, kumbuka kipindi hewani ni Youth Zone Show. Tuko na Sister Aurelia, Father Edward na lecturer anakwenda kwenye
Yes,
kama
if now
janga
we can
from
talk.
Uganda University.
We are offline.
Wanatuelezea kuhusiana na life in Christ we as the youth. Msikilizaji, natumai unaendelea kutegea idhaa hii, maanake wako na mengi mazuri msikilizaji.
This one.
Which?
This one.
When it is great,
They can't hear.
When it is
When
red,
it is red.
we are on.
nataka kusema that we need to be respectful hii hapa and create an inclusive environment, and when they recognize that they are welcome, where they feel they are welcome, yes,